All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us. I'm James Sismanis from Vision One Technologies, and joining me today is James Ingram from Fusion Signage. James, how you going?
Fantastic, buddy. Thanks for having me. This is great to be here. We always love a good opportunity to showcase Fusion, especially with our premium partners. So thanks for having us.
Always, man. It's very exciting when we get James squared in the room, you see. So a unity of two Jameses put together. So
That's it.
it's
True that. True that.
Mate, thanks very much for your time, and it's really good to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty and introduce Fusion Signage to not only customers that are already familiar with the platform, but some of our existing database and clientele that may be interested in exploring the pathways of digital signage and how they can best apply those practices to their everyday functions. So, mate, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Amazing. So I'll just do a quick introduction about Fusion Signage and what it is for those people that maybe don't know what digital signage is, because I know it's something that most people will probably have seen, but maybe don't recognize until somebody explicitly says it. I know as we have new employees that start, they're like, what is digital signage? And then they all of a sudden start seeing it everywhere. But, digital signage is the installation of hardware and screens, typically like a TV screen, into your business, and the display of content in terms of images and videos and other content on them in real time. So anywhere that you've got a poster, you can use a digital screen and digital signage to do it bigger, better, and faster. So Fusion Signage in this element is the software, and it's the thing that happens after you've had a conversation with James at Vision One in order to get the hardware sorted. Software is what you're going to be using day in, day out to update the content that's on your screen. And I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works, but there's lots of little benefits to having digital screens and digital signage in your business. So Fusion has been around for about 6 years. We've been in business for 12, doing integrations and custom content creation as well as software development. But Fusion was born back in 2017, and we've been, I guess, growing in leaps and bounds since then. We're an Australian-based business, which is something we hang our hat on. We've got a small team of 11 staff now, and it's all in-house development, which is fantastic. And most of our development we do based on customer feedback. So one of the great things about Fusion is if it doesn't do something or there's a better way to do it, we're more than happy to hear that feedback from our resellers as well as our end users in order to improve the product for everybody. So please, if you do see anything that you wish it did, let us know, and we're more than happy to build that into it. So I'm happy to just jump into a quick demonstration and show, I guess, as a high level about what digital signage is all about, how simple it could be for your business to use it. We can go into more detail if anybody wants to. Just reach out to James or James, myself, and we're more than happy to do a one-on-one demo or run you through some of the resources to explain anything in more detail. But the idea of this is a little bit of an introduction so that you can see just how quick and easy it is, and then get rid of some of the fear around, well, maybe digital signage is harder than I think. So let me jump in.
And as you prepare for that, I just want to jump in really quickly and make sure that everybody really understands the distinction between software and hardware here. So what James is going to demonstrate really is the software capabilities from cloud-based CMS, which allows you to facilitate your communications and your messages through software and have that display on a digital signage panel. Now, we can do this in one of two ways. We can use a system-on-chip display panel, and there are various brands that allow that functionality, or we can use a dedicated media player from Fusion, which will allow that content to run remotely, or via Android, right, James?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So ultimately, really from us, what you're looking at is a display panel of various sizes and various orientations. So whether you want to look at a landscape or portrait mode solution, both options there are available to you. But yeah, what James is going to demonstrate here is hopefully potentially both landscape and portrait options, and how that looks in a real world setting as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And one additional thing is we do have applications for pretty much every operating system as well. So you mentioned Android, which is probably our most common, but there are obviously other operating systems, Windows, Linux, Tizen, WebOS, Brightside. I mean, there's heaps out there. So you're not really locked into one manufacturer, which I know is a big fear of some customers. I'm buying this and it's proprietary and so on. You've got a lot of freedom when it comes to choosing that hardware. So James has got, we've got a lot of options there when it comes to picking and choosing based on customers' budgets and requirements as well. So it's really quite freeing to be able to pick the hardware that suits the customer. Absolutely. Cool. You can see my screen there. That's all good.
Yeah, you're live now. I think you're
amazing. Yep. So this is the Fusion Signage dashboard. So it's cloud-based, as James has mentioned. You can log in via app.fusionsignage.com.au on any browser, anywhere, and you can manage your entire network remotely if you need to. Once you log in, you've got your dashboard, which is the first page that you're greeted with. And this is kind of like the hub, the command center, where you can see all of the things that exist on your account. Within Fusion, there's a couple of main kind of elements that you'll probably need to become aware of. The first one is content and media, and that is images and videos, which you can create yourself if you have a graphic artist or you've got a marketing team that you use or a creative agency. They can create your images and videos, much like what you'd be doing for any posters or advertisements at the moment. You can use our designer, which I'll show you in a second, which is essentially a built-in Canva, a built-in what you see is what you get editor, where you can design content yourself. Or you can use our marketplace, which is a pretty cost-effective way to get some templates onto your account and up and running very, very quickly if you don't have maybe that design skills, just like I don't. So once you've got your content and your media, then you can put it all into a playlist. And a playlist is what you then put onto the screen. So this is, think of it like a USB stick. If you've got a bunch of images and videos, you put that all into a playlist and you put that playlist onto one or many screens. Then the final step is a schedule. And this is where we can actually tell the screen what playlist you want it to play based on time of day or day of the week. And it's called day parting in the digital signage world. Essentially, it just says on Friday, I'd like you to play this content, on Saturday, this content, or in the morning, afternoon, and so on and so forth. So it's pretty powerful in order to automate the content changing based on time of day. So that's kind of what you're seeing here, the designs that you can build within Fusion, all of the playlists and some of the schedules as well. So you can quickly access any of this to make any changes on the fly, which I'll show you towards the end.
So
on the right, we have some...
Sorry to interject really quickly, James. What I probably do want to reiterate really importantly from us or from an integrator's perspective is one of the things that we love the most about Fusion is the ability or ease of access for customer support. So support is obviously twofold, whether that's directly through Vision One as the integrator, or whether that's through Fusion support team. But ultimately, because we have complete access to user dashboards, we can get in, assist, edit content, update playlists, or assess what might be going on both in a software and hardware environment. So as an example, we've had some challenges in the past sometimes where we may have had an Android media player that was playing up a little bit, or we had some power and data issues on site in some environments. We can very quickly access this dashboard, get that real-time information, and then provide that support both remotely and on site where required.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. So you're never going to feel alone, which is great if there's any problems. Perfect. So once you're in, you can see your licenses, screens online, storage, bandwidth, keep track of all of that, but it's pretty arbitrary once you have more than a screen. Screens online is obviously one of the major ones. And this is probably 9 out of 10 of our support calls is my screen's not online. Most of the time it's got to do with the internet connection on site, because obviously as a cloud-based solution, we do need access to the internet in order to update the content. But if you don't have an internet connection on the device, whatever content you sent is cached and will just continue to play in the background. So you don't have to have a solid internet connection all the time. But if you do want to make updates a lot, I probably recommend it, and making sure that your network infrastructure is actually pretty sound. So screens online, and this is something that James can help with, or we've got a chatbot as well, and we've got some articles around how to self-help. But most of the time, yeah, it'll be called through to James. Cool. So that's the dashboard. On the left over here, we have our menu, and you can kind of start at the top and work your way down to the bottom. I'll show you the designer over here, because the designer is one of the really cool features to kind of get up and running with content creation pretty quickly. I'll show you how you can create content from scratch over here, but one little button we've got at the top is our marketplace. And here's a whole bunch of templates and layouts that we've got in both landscape and portrait, which are ready to go for a small fee. So you pay $49 and you've got access to this template on your account forever, which is great. And you can customize all of these fields, change out the images, change out the text, the colors, move it all around. It was really designed for those customers that don't have a creative team themselves, and they kind of go, well, I've spent all this money on hardware and now I'm just kind of creating something in Paint and my screen doesn't look that good. So the whole point is to have something that looks quite appealing, that's easily accessible, and it's optional if you need to. So have a look through that if that's of interest, but yeah, just in the marketplace under the designer. But if you do have some creative, or let's say you have your own images, you can come in and create a design from scratch. And there are these little default layouts that we've got here, like a hero message, half and half, a little menu board you can select. You've got portrait and landscape as well, options over here, or you can just start from a complete blank design. But once you go in, you can say, click this layout, open it up, and you can see that what you see is what you get editor in here. So I can come in and start typing some content and changes in here, make whatever it is. So hero message, change the font, upload your own fonts, change the colors, and so on. So pretty much everything you'd think from a ground up builder, this is in here. All of these elements can be copied and duplicated. So if you had a whole heap of text that you wanted to put over here, you could do that as well. You've got access to images. So if you've got some image content that you maybe have uploaded yourself, let's say we've got this burger that's got a nice transparent background. I could put that in over here. Yeah, absolutely. So putting all this content in is quite simple if you have access to those resources yourself. However, on the flip side, if you don't, we have linked this through to a Unsplash. So on this image reference over here, you can see we've got Unsplash photos. This has access to over 1 million free to use stock images. So you could search for pretty much any content. Let's keep the burger theme going and say, yep, come through here, professional photography. I like the look at this. Let me import that. And now that is a piece of content that you can use in your layout or on your design. So if I make that a little bit bigger and go to cover, you can see that that now sits over there on that side. So pretty quickly, you can start to see how that content can start to look pretty good. So I, like I said, am not a designer, but you can start to get the idea of how things can come together. Otherwise, you've got lines, so shapes and lines we've got options for in here. So if you want to make something that looks a little bit creative, things like this with opacity, coming down, put it over the corner, change the color, just move stuff around and have a bit of a play with it. And you can start to put your pricing fields over here, bring those in backwards, and so on and so forth. Oh my goodness, I am a terrible designer.
Well, I think the most important thing, James, is that with this, what you see is what you get editor. It's not confronting. It's not confusing. I think that's really the greatest benefit is it's got universal appeal. You don't need any very specific skill set. Like you said, you don't have to have a design background. You've just, look, most people that have played with anything around the lines of PowerPoint or Word can look at this interface and understand how familiar it does appeal. And it's just about taking advantage of the feature set, right?
Absolutely right. So play around with it and you'll tweak something pretty good. But if not, then you've got this marketplace where you can just buy a good starting point and away you go. So getting your designs up and running pretty quick. You can add in video content as well if you do have your own video content. So put in a single video over here and start inlaying that content. But where the designer becomes, I guess, quite powerful is in the ability to put in things like dynamic widgets. So obviously with a poster, you can only put a single image and it will never change. But you can see video content or things like putting a clock in, putting a countdown widget in. Say I've got a time that I'm heading towards, I can put a countdown widget in. You can put a date, whether HTML to integrate into kind of back-end systems, image slideshows, website, UDP, heaps of different things that can really start to spruce up and give additional information to your customers in real time, dynamically updating. So there's a lot that we're going to be doing with the designer moving forward, but obviously content creation is one element of it. So I'll keep this quite short because I could spend quite a while going through all the bits and pieces. But the idea, I guess, is just creating content within the platform. If you have your own content, then obviously the manage section is where you can start to upload that. So if you have your own images in your videos, as I mentioned, you can just create a folder. You can add subfolders in here, press add, upload that content, image and video, drag it in, and then you've got it into the platform. So it's all about getting your content into here so then we can start to distribute it out to the screens. So adding in images and videos, drag and drop interface. The next step is to create a playlist. So putting a playlist together, click on playlist and we'll call it screen 1 playlist. And now we've got our playlist editor where we can start to add media. So if you've uploaded it, you can click on the files and start to build that playlist behind the content. And then essentially the playlist starts at the top, works its way to the bottom and rotates through all day, every day. You can set durations, you can change the order, you can duplicate, you can even add in schedules to say, well, I actually just want this piece of content to appear on Mondays and Tuesdays between these times, starting from this date. So now that content gets added into the rotation. So it is quite quick to say, well, here's how I want my content to appear, in what order and for how long. When you're ready, you can hit the preview button and you can see in portrait and landscape what this content is going to look like. Cycle through and that content will appear. It'll appear exactly on your screen as this looks. So if you're seeing it like this, then we need to make sure that your content is being rendered to the correct aspect ratio. Or you can use Fit, Fill and Stretch, which has mixed results if you're using it portrait content and landscape. So always try to create your content to the resolution.
And I've seen that before on site too, I might say.
I think we all have, and I think everybody watching this will see it in the future when you walk through a big shopping center and see somebody who's stretching their content to the incorrect aspect ratio. Absolutely. So let's say you've got this content ready. This is exactly what you're ready to put on your screen. It's pretty simple. Hit save and publish, and up here you've got the option to select any of the screens that have been added into your account. Most of the time this will happen by James already, so these will be ready to go, named accordingly, and once the installation process happens, so you'll just say, okay, my office screen is the one I want to do. It'll tell you whether the device is online or offline, so this means it's connected to the internet and the app is running, and whether there's any content already assigned. If not, you're ready to go. This will give you a warning because your screen is offline. But if it turns on and off daily, which is something that a lot of screens can be set to do, turn on at 8 a.m., turn off at 5 p.m., this will just download the content as soon as it turns back on. Hit save and publish. That content is now assigned to the screen. And within about 40 seconds, if it's online, that content will be updated and ready to go. So now the flow, pretty much, if you were going to say make a change to this content, you could come back to the dashboard and you'll see that screen one playlist here is sitting at the top of my most recents. So let's say you wanted to change the content that's playing on your office screen. You could come in, select screen one playlist. It opens up in a new window. You see all the content. You go, okay, I'd like to delete those two. I'd like to add some media. I could use the uploader right here. So I could just drag my files in. It'll upload that content instead of having to go back to the manage section. But let's just go in and find a few extra files. Hit save and publish. You'll see that that's already assigned to the screen. Save and publish again, and now within, again, 40 seconds to a minute, that content's been updated. So content changes are very, very quick once you've kind of built that initial infrastructure, which is something that either James or ourselves can help with, that setting up initially to get you guys up and running and set it up in line with best practices. I will quickly show a schedule because let's say you want to change your content completely based on time of day. So if we go in and add a new schedule and we call it screen one, now you get a nice little calendar view. So this calendar view will allow you to choose exactly which playlist you want to play when. So if I drag over this time frame, it'll give you a drop down. You'll see all the playlists that exist on your account. That screen one playlist is the one that we just created. I can refine this and say I want it on additional days. I'd like it to play at these additional times, or let's say I want it to play forever at these times. Add that to the schedule. It puts it in as an event. And now as I cycle through the weeks, you'll see that's always there. So now every time at 3:45 a.m. till 9 a.m., this playlist will play. And then we can say, well, after it, I'd like this content to play and so on. So you could build your calendar months and months into advance, and that way it constantly automates that process for you. Set and forget and make sure that your content is done correctly. Where there is a gap between two playlists, by default, the playlist will just end, but it'll continue to play that last content so that something is playing on your screen. But at the top, we have a default playlist option here, which you can set as your default playlist. So if I set that, it grays out the area around all these playlists. So now when this playlist ends, it'll go back and play whatever your content is. So you always know that I've got this exclusive content scheduled for this exact time, but then go back and play my standard content reel until something else kind of happens. So it's just a really handy way to fill in those gaps if you've got a lot of only a few events happening. Then when you're ready, hit save and publish, and then you've got the same options here. So you can only ever have either a playlist or a schedule assigned, because a playlist is a bunch of content, but a schedule is a bunch of playlists. So I would override the content on my office screen and press save and publish. And now based on the time on that device, it'll update that content in real time. Finally, we've got the deploy section. So this is where all of the screens are added. So depending on how many licenses you need, how many screens you've got, this is where you can see, I guess, a bunch of information about it. Typically, our customers don't really come in here. It's probably more for James to go in and troubleshoot. There's some information that we can get about, the device fingerprint, when it was last online, stuff like that. Really, for you guys, it'll probably just be the online status. So there's a whole bunch of dummy screens in here, but essentially this will tell you whether the device is online or offline. There is a handy feature here to turn on notifications so that you can be sent an email if the screen goes offline for some reason. Then you can be proactive to go and get it back online. If you click on this, you can see a 14-day history of what the device has done. So you can see exactly when it's gone off, and it gives us a little bit of troubleshooting around device signal strength and so on and so forth. The main thing that you might want to do is basically change the content that's on a screen. So this office screen here, for example, I could come in, click on this teal box and say either edit, so I could edit it in real time and go back into that edit menu and make some changes to that schedule, or I could just replace it with something else. And we've got playlists and schedules at the top here. So I could go back to my screen one playlist instead, press submit, and then that content will be changed over. It's just a nice way to, I guess, change it on an individual basis without having to go through the playlist. But much of a muchness, it depends on what you need. But in terms of best practice, most of our customers will assign a playlist or a schedule, and then they'll just update the content in that playlist directly, which then feeds out to multiple screens if you've got it on the same. Naming conventions is also something depending on the number of screens that you've got. So there's some examples that I've got here. If you've only got a couple, it could literally just be my office screen or my foyer screen. But if you've got a lot, then it could be by state and then by suburb and then the number screen, could be orientation, so landscape or portrait, could be resolution. Really, there's no hard and fast rules, and these can be changed at any time by clicking on this and editing it, coming in and making a change here if you want to make it a little bit more noticeable. Whatever makes sense to you to identify what that screen is. Finally, under the settings, we do have the option to add users, and you can have as many users as you want. There's no limit. You can add in as many people. We've got a permission grouping system as well that basically gives them access, so you can really refine down what they can do within the account. I won't go into this in too much detail, but just know that it's all license-based, so you can have as many users as you want. Is there anything else you think I need to go through, James, or anything in more detail that your customers might need to see?
I think that's terrific, James. It's a really clear overview as to what it's capable of. But I think the most important thing is transmitting that understanding that it is simple to use, it is familiar, it isn't difficult by any stretch of the imagination. This is something that anybody can pick up and spend an hour at most with the interface and understand how it operates. And at a worst case, that's what we're here for, really. It's ensuring that we continue to provide the necessary support, and anything that is confusing or anything that's challenging, it's always welcome to reach out to myself or James or the team at Fusion, and we're here to help.
Amazing. Yeah. So like we said, if you ever want a bit more detail, reach out to James and we can set up a one-on-one. We can set you up with a free trial account as well if you want to just have a play with it. Gives you a free license, or we give you a few free licenses for 3 weeks, and then you just basically go ham and then talk to James about the hardware requirements on site, and he can definitely pair you up with the best hardware that suit your needs. So,
right, and I think Darren is able to do some demonstrations offsite as well remotely if that's required.
Absolutely. Yep. And we can help with that onboarding as well. So if you do want to sit down with us, we can give you some best practice advice, or, with yourself, James, we're happy to do that together. So it's a very collaborative approach is the main thing that we want to kind of get across, is because we're Australian based, we're all in the same time zone, and it's in our interest to make sure you guys are set up and feeling comfortable, because, it can be an investment, and we want to make sure that investment is absolutely worth it, which we know it will be. So yeah, happy to help however we need.
Absolutely. Awesome, James. Well, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate the chat and the overview, and I'm sure we'll be in touch with some more feedback once again soon.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. Take care.